ultimately, covenant and accountability go hand in hand. There is the quality of this is how we are accountable to each other, but it needs to be done in light of this idea of what is it that's greater than ourselves that we're going to hold ourselves accountable to. And sometimes people don't like the word accountable. You can use the word responsible. What are we going to hold ourselves responsible to? But I think we're using the word accountable in the most deep and sincere way, that there are certain accountabilities that come out of our values and guide how we want to live our lives, and this is the kind of accountability we're talking about. There's also this idea that by covenanting with that which is greater than ourselves, we're also concerned, and thinking about it, I mentioned a while ago that these are ideals that we hold ourselves up to, making sure that voices that might not necessarily be present are being thought about, and either seeking them out or imagining them into presence until they are actually present in the community. For example, making sure that the voices of the elders in the community are present, even though some of those elders might not be present and participating. Seek out those voices. Another is the voice of the young people who are in the community, seeking out what do the youth have to say about youth. Our youth and our children in RE programs actually sometimes have a lot of experience from covenanting together in their classes. So what do they have to say about what the loyalties are that they want to lift up? And what about the parents of the children in the congregation? What are the values that they want to speak to? And what about those communities that are not necessarily in the congregation, but we definitely feel accountable to them in our justice-making work in the community? What are those voices that we would like to hold ourselves accountable to?
So it's basically a commitment of how we want to be in the world together. Part of helping ourselves grow is allowing ourselves to be in an accountable relationship to one another. And this is something I think that there's a little bit of an edginess about that. In mentoring kinds of relationships, if you have a really good mentor, the mentor asks you hard questions. So if you have a certain aspiration that you've talked about, and in our congregations it can be this way as well. If you have something that you're trying to achieve in your life and you're doing something that's counterproductive to that, if you're in an accountable relationship with someone, you're giving them permission to I know challenge is a hard word, but to really hold up the mirror to you about what you're doing. And you're agreeing that you're willing to listen to that. You don't necessarily have to agree with it, but you're willing to listen and consider that. So that's part of what being in an accountable relationship is, in a free kind of free and accountable relationship. So, for example, we in our work in Phoenix, we are partnering with local organizations, and we are holding ourselves in accountable relationship with those organizations. So some of the great ideas we had about going to General Assembly, we've had to set aside because we have really actually held ourselves accountable to our partner organizations. And just because we want to do something, if they tell us that it's not going to help their cause, we've had to pull back and not do those things. So that's a really good example of what it means to be in an accountable relationship.
But there's a lot of checking in, I think, required to live into the covenant, to ask, how am I doing, how are we doing, with real intentionality to lift up that really wanting to stay in accountability to each other.
Excellent. So we talk a little bit about asking clarifying questions, so to not automatically jump to conclusions about what's going on. For example, I was trying to get into a website, and the password got changed on me. And, there's a lot of explanations about how that could have happened, but, I could have gone to they don't want me on there anymore, to, they don't care about telling me when the password changes, to, whatever it could be. So part of it is like, okay, what went on? Not to assume not to assume anything, to really ask questions about what's really happening before jumping to conclusions. Another thing that's good about to be in good relationship is to really share what our positive reactions are before we share our concerns. So to let people know that, we do care, we are interested, this is the good stuff, but at the same time, there's some other areas for growth. So to make sure you frame it in a larger balcony view of the big picture. So there's both the good and the what needs improvement. It's important to respond creatively rather than critically. If any of you have worked with the Spirit Play curriculum, they have the wonder questions. I wonder what's going on, or I wonder, to really open up the conversation rather than assuming that you have the answer.